We start with a special report on ABC 57 News tonight at 11. Thanks for joining us. I'm Colleen Borman.
And I'm Brian Conybeare. ABC 57 First Warning Neighborhood Weather Chief Meteorologist Tom Coombs went into the flood zone for us to talk with those struggling now to rebuild. Tom?
Yeah, Brian and Colleen, flooding is not covered by regular insurance. But what if you were told you didn't need flood insurance? That's what neighbors in one of the most waterlogged parts of Plymouth are upset about. They feel like they were misled and want to warn others not to make the same mistake.
Community has never seen a flood like this.
Frustration from a mother of 5.
I know a lot of people are angry about it because to be told that we are not in the floodplain, that we're 0.2%, that it will never flood, and then this.
Nicole Hickey and her ever-growing family.
We have 5 kids, 3 boys, 2 girls.
Already went through a disaster in the past year. First, a house fire.
We were both at work when the fire happened. It was June 28th, and I pulled up to our house completely in flames.
And now, historic floods ruining her newly rehabbed home.
As you can tell kind of on the sides of the doors and the walls, it did get up pretty high. It got a lot higher over here. So you can see the staining on the door, and then this room, the whole floor is just shot. And it's bubbled and just completely destroyed.
The goal after the fire was to fix up and sell.
Well, my husband makes fun of me because it's one of those, oh, it's a pretty house with a white picket fence. So he always makes fun of me because he's like, this house has so many problems and you picked a house with a white picket fence.
She and her husband Josh just wanted to pay off their mortgage and move on.
How can we get this house to look good to people? Because there is 7 of us and it's a 1,400 square foot house. So we knew that we were going to be outgrowing it.
It's a modest home, fit for any starter family, within eyesight of the Yellow River.
We had flood insurance when we first bought the house. It specifically said that it was in a floodplain and it had flood insurance. So we had it for quite a few years, and I mean, it wasn't anything that we even thought twice about. Living that close to the river, absolutely.
This home is less than 2 blocks from the river, and most of this neighborhood is no longer in the floodplain. After recent rezoning, neighbors were told flood insurance was no longer necessary. As of 2011, the Hickey's house and much of the neighborhood south of Lake Avenue is zoned to have less than a 0.2 annual chance of flooding. Mark Peterson now with FEMA.
The 0.2% annual chance flood, those are areas of lower risk, but still a risk that needs to be delineated on the flood maps.
That 0.2 statistic might work fine on paper when companies crunch the numbers, but it doesn't hold up with the Hickeys.
Honestly, we found out through a letter in the mail. The bank sent us a letter saying that they rezoned, we are no longer in the floodplain, so they took us off our flood insurance.
According to FEMA, though, it turns out flood insurance isn't just reserved for those living in high-risk areas. We're told anyone living in Michiana can get it. In fact, FEMA recommends it.
It's so important to recognize that floods do not end on a line on a map. Floods can extend into areas that maybe have never flooded before in the past. Purchasing flood insurance is the best way to protect yourself financially from those impacts.
The Hickeys didn't know they could have been covered during this disaster. Now Nicole and her family are forced to wait for what comes next.
We're hoping and praying that we get some sort of federal assistance.
The lesson here is don't let anyone tell you you don't need flood insurance. Anyone can get it. You may not be required to have it, but you need to evaluate your home, whether you have a mortgage or you own it outright, even if you live outside a floodplain. Now, we learned in 2016 that flash flooding, not just river flooding, can cause major damage and is not covered by regular insurance. The flood risk keeps increasing. The number of monthly record rain events since 1950, most of these have come since the year 2000. Over 25%, over 50% have come since 1990. This trend looks to be another added cost of climate change. Reporting live, I'm ABC 57 First Warning Neighborhood Weather Chief Meteorologist Tom Coombs.